Rate Commission member organizations shall represent commercial industrial users, residential users, and other organizations interested in the operation of the district, including, by the way of example, but not by way of limitation, organizations focused on environmental issues, labor issues, socioeconomic issues, community neighborhood organizations, and other nonprofit organizations. For a list of individual rate commissioners and the organizations they represent, please visit the Rate Commission section of MSD's website at www.msdprojectclear.org. The Rate Commission received a rate change notice from MSD staff on March 24th, 2023, for wastewater rates and stormwater rates and taxes. Per the Charter Plan, the Rate Commission must issue its report on the proposed rate change notice to MSD's Board of Trustees on or before September 5th, 2023. The Rate Commission adopted operational rules and a procedural schedule to conduct its proceedings in a timely manner with procedural fairness to all parties. Since the rate change notice was received on March 24th, 2023, the Rate Commission has received testimony from MSD staff and the rate consultants employed by the Rate Commission to evaluate the MSD's staff proposal. The parties have also engaged in discovery requests. Documentation of these activities is listed on the Rate Commission section of MSD's website at www.msdprojectclear.org. Tonight's public hearing is one of 14 planned on-the-record sessions that will be conducted from June 21st, 2023 through August 7, 2023. Any ratepayer who wishes to be heard on the proposed rate change may testify or participate in the public hearing sessions. These public hearing sessions are publicly noticed via postings to the Rate Commission section of MSD's website at www.msdprojectclear.org. These postings contain the time, date, and location of each of the public hearings. As hearings are added to the schedule, the same information will be posted. Public hearings are held for the purpose of permitting MSD staff to present its wastewater and stormwater rate change proposal to the general public and to permit said public the opportunity to ask questions and/or make comments. Those unable to or not wishing to provide public comments at a public hearing may provide feedback to the Rate Commission via phone or email. The phone number is 314-335-2028. Again, the phone number is 314-335-2028. The email address is ratecommission@ahcconsulting.com. Again, the email address is ratecommission@ahcconsulting.com. A card with the contact information is available at the sign-in area. Alternatively, staff representing the Rate Commission, who will ask to identify themselves shortly, will also be able to provide that information. Further information on how to provide feedback outside of the public hearings is listed on the Rate Commission section of MSD's website at www.msdprojectclear.org. Our next step tonight is a presentation by MSD staff, followed by a public comment period. Tonight's presenter is Brian Holscher, MSD's CEO and Executive Director. As presiding commissioner of tonight's meeting, I would ask that questions be held into the comment period after the presentation. Those wishing to speak should sign in at the sign-in area. Speakers will be called upon the order they have signed up. Each speaker should identify themselves and any organizations they represent. Several housekeeping rules before we begin are: if you wish to present testimony or expect you may have questions/comments, please sign in at the door by which you entered the room. Speakers will be recognized in the order in which they sign up. While not a requirement, we ask those that are speaking to state their name and address so we may ensure we are associating comments in the record with the correct speakers. If you are representing an organization, please provide information about the organization. If speakers wish to remain anonymous, in whole or part, we respect those wishes. Each speaker may have a maximum of 10 minutes to speak regarding the proposed rate change. As the presiding officer, I can limit or expand speaking time as deemed necessary. If you have not already done so, please silence your cell phones. If you have further questions regarding bathrooms or any other logistics, staff representing the Rate Commission, staff, please raise your hands, are available. Are there any questions regarding the procedures for this evening? Is MSD ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Holscher, please step forward.
That was it. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Murin. My name is Brian Holscher. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. My presentation tonight is going to kind of be in three parts. First of all, I want to talk about MSD in general, a little background so everybody knows what MSD does, what we're responsible for. Some discussions about the two systems we run, the stormwater and the wastewater system, and the work that's being done with those. And then finally, and probably most importantly, we are going to be asking the voters some questions at the April 2024 election. I'm going to go over those in detail. They're kind of the meat of the presentation, and I'll explain that at the end. And then there'll be room for questions. As I'm going through this, the one thing I want to let you know, my internal staff, raise your hands, are here. I'm going to go over the rate proposal. If you have other questions about MSD specific to your home or some other topic, we will stay as long as it takes, and we have the folks here who can probably answer your question, or if nothing else, be able to get back to you at a later date. So again, three parts, something we call a tale of two systems. There are two different systems that are funded with separate funding sources. Talk about those. Again, talk about the rate proposal and the Rate Commission's role, and then go over very specifically what's in the rate proposal. So MSD's Project Clear protects the public's health and safety and water environment by responsibly managing these two separate systems. The management problems, though, change, and they are different. On the wastewater side, there's funding to continue the program, the court-mandated program to fix the wastewater system. On the stormwater side, it is a partnership between MSD and the public, how much funding and what we fund for stormwater. And so you'll see something that'll be a little bit different when we talk about the programs and talk about the funding requirements. On the wastewater side, some of the work, cleaning and repair of the existing wastewater system. The existing wastewater system right now is working better than it ever has before. It's clean. And when we have a normal, what is just a normal rain, normal storm, everything works terrifically, especially compared to where it was, say, 25 years ago. We're making sure we're in compliance with environmental regulations. That's what's really driving this program. Those regulations and the major improvements we're making are based on a consent decree or an agreement with the Department of Justice, the EPA, having to do with what work we got to do in order to come in compliance with the Clean Water Act. It's not just the work we have to do, but also the time we have to do it in. So MSD's program is not set up with optional items as to what we want to get done. It's actually stuff that's mandated by a federal judge. You'll find that the work that we're going to do over the next 4 years, 98% of the expenditures are on mandated activities from that consent decree. Stormwater is a different story. There's not a separate regulatory issue here. It's very customer service driven. Right now, we're able to take care of regulatory issues with stormwater. That has to do with treating pollutants that are in stormwater runoff, taking care of those, making sure the existing sewer system, the inlets and the sewers throughout the area, make sure they work, make sure they're in good shape, operate and maintain those. Until 2016, MSD was not able to do that with all the storm sewers in the area. The area outside of 270 was given to MSD to maintain in 1989 with no revenues. So we couldn't maintain the inlets or the storm sewers, and we had very few revenues inside 270. 2016, that got resolved by a vote of the public, who put a property tax in place, and right now we're making sure those systems stay clean, regular inspection of inlets, and repairing those part of the storm sewers that have caused problems in the past. There is a third service that we can provide, and that has to do with flooding and creek erosion. MSD doesn't have those in its responsibility. There's not ownership of those problems, but we do have the ability to raise money, work with the community, and resolve those problems if the public agrees to provide funding. Last time we attempted to do that in 2019, the public voted no, that they did not want us to participate in that program. We've revised the program a little bit based on some input we've had from the public, and we're presenting something again in 2024 for consideration by the public. Good, okay. Let's talk about the wastewater system. The goals: reduce backups in homes and also overflows. That wastewater system is where I want to be. One more. There we go. Okay. So first one is wastewater systems. There's a couple things: the backups that are into homes, making sure we try and we reduce those, and also overflows into the environment. A common practice in the past was, especially some of the systems we inherited, was when stormwater got into the sewer systems, instead of letting it back up to homes, pipes or little holes were put in manholes next to creeks. And so instead of the water, when it filled up inside the sanitary sewer with stormwater, instead of going to basements, it discharged directly to creeks and streams. That's illegal. We had to get rid of that. That's been a big part of our program. That also improves water quality, which is the ultimate goal of everything we're trying to do, and ultimately keep us in compliance or reach compliance with the Clean Water Act by 2039 as we get through there. The methods we use it, we do increase the capacity of the system where necessary. That's a little more challenging, especially with some of the changes in stormwater patterns, which can flood areas and cause problems in the sanitary sewer system caused by some climate change. But what we have done is remove water from the wastewater system. There is stormwater that was getting in, not supposed to be there, that was causing the backups. The St. Louis's biggest issue was that some homes were built, the roof downspouts were connected to the sanitary lateral that goes out from underneath your home. That obviously was pumping stormwater into the system, some people actually flooding themselves every time it rained coming from the wastewater system. We've gone through the area, and every place that was causing a problem, we have paid to have those fixed. Also eliminate points where untreated water spills into the streams. That's why I was talking about those points that were intentionally put in place a while back in order to make sure basements don't back up. So we got to take the stormwater out to do two things. One, make sure we don't back up the basements, start reducing those, but also make sure we have enough capacity that once we take out those overflows and make sure we're able to handle what's in the system. Go ahead. What progress have we made? The number of those overflows that go out to creeks and streams, we've reduced those by 84%. That was the biggest focus of the schedule that was put in place by the federal government when we were sued to move forward. Building backups are down 25%. Again, on the more normal storms, we don't even see problems at all. One of the things we're seeing, we would like that 25% down to be a much larger number. Unfortunately, climate change has started to put us a little bit behind the curve. The types of storms we're getting the same amount of rain, it's just coming in a much shorter period, and it's coming much harder. And then to accomplish that, we have at least more than 650 projects that have been completed or started in order to fix that system, so we have sufficient capacity. Stormwater is a little bit different. Again, with lack of funding, the number of complaints we have or problems that we know have been rising. We collect all these. We're also a stormwater regulator, so every time there's a stormwater problem, we log it. Even if we don't have funds or the ability to do something, we know where the problems are. Again, there's been a sharp increase. I'll talk about that a little bit later, about what those issues are and what folks would like funded and what problems they'd like resolved. And again, what happens is there's extra problems now because we end up with storms on a pretty significant basis that outstrip anything that's in the built infrastructure or natural systems can handle. That's what's causing a lot of the local flooding. So the problems just become that much worse in especially last 10 to 15 years. Stormwater problems, what do they look like? This is a pretty minor example. One of them is flooding. This is an example of water sitting in a yard, for whatever reason, wasn't picked up, wasn't taken care of when the site was developed. There's been work afterwards. Second one is creek erosion. There are areas that don't necessarily have problems with flooding, but we end up with storms coming through and water going through creeks and streams much faster for much longer periods of time. They start eating away the banks, eating away people's yards, and even threatening homes in a lot of cases. And so those are other problems that we'd like to have a fund to help resolve. Where are the problems? These are the 4 major watersheds in the district. Starting from the top, the Missouri watershed, you see we had 97 recorded issues. That's in the upper left-hand corner. The Mississippi River watershed in the upper right-hand corner, it's next to the Mississippi River, 61. The area we have the largest recorded problems are in the River to Pear watershed. That's a purple area on the lower right. And then the Merrimack watershed, which is to the south, that has 144. Note the number of issues. Remember that the way we know how many issues there are for stormwater is people reporting them. You notice that 264 number in the River to Pear watershed. That happens to have some legacy small taxing districts for stormwater where we are fixing problems. Brentwood is one of those. The reason we found that they have more problems than other places is if we have some funds to do something, people are more prone to report stormwater problems to us. Areas where we don't have any funding and can't do anything, they get tired of reporting to us and us telling them there's nothing we can do about it. So I suspect once this problem gets going, more of those problems and more of those issues will be brought to MSD's attention so we can move forward with them. Some information on the Rate Commission. I'm not going to repeat this, but again, they're an independent body. Mr. Murin described this. And again, what's on here, I think we do have the website here, msdprojectclear.org/rate commission. All the documentation for the entire process is on that website. If you want to follow it, view the testimony, they mentioned discovery requests, cross-examination, exhibits, rate proposal itself are all on that website if you're interested in going there. What does the timeline look like throughout? In 2023, and I'll actually start with the summer of 2022, MSD staff starts putting together a rate proposal. That's based on what our regulatory needs are as well as input that we are continuously getting from the public as to what they feel is important, what they feel is needed. We give that rate proposal as described previously by Mr. Murin in March of 2023, and they will take through September looking at MSD's rate proposal, evaluating it, with the plan being in September to deliver to MSD's Board of Trustees any comments or changes that they would recommend to the rate proposal that MSD staff put together. Then from September to December, MSD's Board of Trustees will take a look at those recommendations and decide what to do with them and how to move forward. 2024, we will be doing MSD staff, regardless of what comes out of those that board approval process, we'll be doing some education to the voters, letting them know we will have 2 proposals, one stormwater, one wastewater. There'll be 2 propositions. We'll do a lot of education saying if you vote no, here's what happens. If you vote yes, here's what happens. We'll do that both for stormwater and wastewater. You won't find us advocating for either position. This is up to the public, both of those, as to which way they want to proceed. After that, depending on the results of the election, and I'll describe later how they're different, something will happen with the wastewater rate as a result of the elections. Any changes in rates will occur with the bill that the public receives in August 2024. If the stormwater rate is approved, and this is a brand new service, the plan is to start collecting for that in calendar year 2025. There's two different ways that we're collecting those rates, but they'll all be collected through 2025 for the first time, and then we'll start delivering services. What do the rate proposals look like? And this is the part I promised you. Here's probably what you came to the meeting for. So the stormwater rate proposal is designed to provide a funding source to address flooding and erosion problems throughout the entire district. We're going to collect amount of monies from residential and non-residential customers separately. What we've done is we've taken the impervious area, that's driveways, rooftops, places where water doesn't soak in, it runs off. We've taken those to determine what should be the burden on the residential customers and what should be the burden on the non-residential customers. The residential customers constitute about 57% of the impervious area, and the non-residential customers, both profit and not-for-profit, they represent 43%. So the revenue that's going to be collected is going to be divided that way. Residential customers provide 57% of the revenue. Non-residential customers will be providing 43% of the revenues. So for the residential customers, the rate proposal is for a property tax that for a median household value of $176,000 would result in a tax bill of about $25 per year, property tax bill. That's about $2 per month. Based on surveying, that's the amount that'd be acceptable to a majority of the voters based on polling. So that's the starting point, is we want to make sure we put something out there that has the potential of being put in place. For the non-residential customers, again, they're providing 43% of the revenue. If you back into that, they're going to be charged, well, let me back up. The residential customers, that will be on your property tax bill. For the non-residential customers, commercial, industrial, non-residential, not-for-profits, they will be getting a monthly bill. Their charge will be $1.05 per 1,000 square feet of impervious area per month on their property. That will then generate 43% of the revenue. What is the funding? Right now, just to know the size of the problem, we're estimating what we know about right now is about $700 million worth of issues have been identified. This proposal will generate about $34 million a year. It lets us get started, and especially get started on the most critical stormwater issues that we have. We're talking about how, that $700 million number, by the way, does not address any of the problems that became evident during the storms last summer, during the 500-year storms that put basically St. Louis under a couple feet of water. This doesn't address that. That would be another issue separate from this. But it does have a mechanism to be addressed here. So the way we're going to expend those dollars, our plan is 50% of that $34 million. MSD does a benefit cost ratio, as we do in some of those little sub-districts I mentioned earlier. We take all the benefits of a project, what's getting damaged, let's take an erosion project, somebody losing a fence, yard, garage, house. What are the benefits? They have points assigned to them. What's the total of the benefits divided by the cost? So we have a benefit cost analysis. We simply take the one projects at the top of the list and we work down that list. We will do that district-wide. We'll spend 50% of the revenues on that program. 30% of the revenues are going to be available to the individual municipalities in the form of municipal grants based on population to do whatever stormwater activity they feel is most critical within their individual municipality. It doesn't have to match our need for what we think is a priority. We want to try and attack this from both the top and the bottom. So the municipalities will have a chance to ask for those grants. We will just make sure that they're addressing stormwater issues. As long as they're addressing stormwater issues, those municipalities will be able to apply for those grants and use that grant money to take care of any issue. And again, the amount that gets distributed is going to be based on what the population looks like. 10% of the revenues are going to go to, and I'm using a federal term here, it's not what's used in the state level, but we participate in both state and federal areas, 10% is going to be spent on what's been identified as environmental justice areas. So these are areas, I'm not going to go into the definition of environmental justice, but the state has defined areas, low income, disadvantaged, areas where, underserved areas in the past. We're going to take those areas in general. Those are North City, North County, part of North County going to the west, and there's an area in South City and South County that show up on the mapping that's provided by the state of Missouri. 10% of that's going to go and use that benefit cost analysis I previously talked about, but the pool of projects will only come from environmental justice areas. So it'll allow us to kickstart some areas that have been underserved in the past. And then finally, and this is something that came out especially with communications with municipalities, city managers, and some folks, we're going to save 10% of those dollars to have a discussion with a group that will represent the whole area. Is there something that needs to get done in stormwater that doesn't really fit into any of those buckets I just identified? Is there really a policy thing we need to go after? And because it recently happened, I'll just say maybe it's decided 10% of those revenues ought to go towards buying people out of floodplains who got hit real hard last summer. Maybe that's where those dollars should go to. Right now, just to make sure we have a mechanism, we have talked to the Municipal League. They seem receptive to putting a committee together to represent all the municipalities throughout our service area and help provide guidance to our Board of Trustees about where that other 10% could go. Stuff that doesn't fit into one of those other categories I previously described. Next, wastewater proposal. So right now, MSD's consent decree, again, I mentioned we were sued by the federal government. We're one of over 200 municipalities. There was a strategy by the federal government. We're going to sue every municipality and put a defined schedule for them to get in line with the Clean Water Act. St. Louis was one of those. Right now, the value of that project is $7.2 billion in 2023 dollars. We always price our consent decree based on current dollars. So when we signed the consent decree in 2011, in 2011 dollars, it was $4.7 billion. In 2021, we repriced it because it's been a while. It was priced at $6.1 billion in 2021. Knowing that we had a rate proposal coming up and knowing you've all gone through the economic situation we've been through in the last 2 or 3 years, prior to submitting the rate proposal, we repriced the program again. So right now it's priced in today's dollars at $7.2 billion. So that doesn't mean an increase in the size or cost of the program. It's us pricing the program and just bringing it up to the current dollars. We are on budget and we are on schedule to complete the work that's in the consent decree. So what's going to be asked is how to pay for, from 2025 to 2028, how to pay for the wastewater improvements that are required to meet the requirements of that consent decree and other regulatory requirements. There's $1.7 billion of work that's anticipated to be started in those 4 years. And the proposal that's going to be considered by the ratepayers is, do we want to pay cash for all the work during that period for the $1.7 billion, or do we want to bond some of it or borrow money for some of it? In this case, what's been proposed is additional $750 million worth of bonding. I'll show you in a minute what the impact of that is. This is just like buying a car or buying the house. If you bought a house right now and paid cash, it cost you a lot now, but you don't have any expense for purchasing the house later. Or you can borrow money, have it cost you less now, pay over time, and pay something extra because you have debt service or you have interest. That's the question that will be put in front of the voters. Which way do you want us to pay for that? And here's the magical chart that really shows that. So on the left-hand side is assuming that the voters will approve additional bonding of $750 million for the next 4 years. The numbers you see are the average monthly residential bill for wastewater service. This is the bill that the residents get on a monthly basis. Your bill will not be identical to this. This is the average. The amount that you're charged is based on your potable water usage during the winter. That's how we determine how much goes down the drains. So that's what these numbers show. So right now, the average customer is $57.04. The first year with bonding, a 7% increase to the amount you've shown. then 7.6, 7.5, and finally 6.6%, which brings in 2028 the cost for the average residential customer, a monthly cost is $75.23. So before I leave this one, one thing I want to mention, there is part of the district that does not have water meters. And this is in the city of St. Louis. Most of the residential homes there don't have water meters. They are billed by the water company based on the attributes in the homes. How many water closets, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, living space. They have a parameter to do that. Based on a decision by the Missouri Supreme Court, those are the parameters we have to use to bill them for wastewater service. What we do is we take those parameters and we assign flows to those different types of parameters. Every time we do a rate proposal, we take a look to see if there's been a significant change in the way water usage is throughout the area. This town, we found some. And so what's going to happen in the city, contrary to what you see on this chart, that first year in 2025, whatever, if you are a city resident with a unbilled water service, you're going to see a 0.8% decrease in your bill in the first year. 2026, 2027, and 2028 will go up by the percentages shown, 7.6%, 7.5%, 6.6%. So that is something that's a little bit different here, but I want to make sure and mention that in case there's anybody who happens to be in that situation who's listening to the presentation. Finally, and again, I'm going back to everybody now, if you look on the right-hand side, that is the result of voting no for new bonding. Decided that for the next 4 years, we're just going to pay cash and not have MSD borrow any money to pay for the program. If you do that, kind of think of the house scenario I gave you. You see the increases, 35% the first 2 years, then a 20% decrease. Obviously, that's how the money's needed as we're doing the capital program, and then a 5% decrease, resulting in a rate for the average residential user for wastewater of $87.72 per month in 2028. Again, this will be a decision of the voters. We don't have a choice whether or not to do the work. The federal judge has already decided that for us. The question is, how do we pay for this? That's what we're coming to the voters to decide. How do we want to move forward paying for this? And so before I start with questions, we're going to leave this screen up here. This has got a lot of the contact numbers and stuff for you to contact before questions. Write it down. Again, there's been a lot of other discussions about a lot of other places you can contact people. We want to offer as many things as we can for anybody who has questions, comments, or whatever they want to do with the process. So, Mr. Murin, that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Holscher. Do the rate commissioners have any questions or comments? If any members of the public that wish to speak have not yet signed up, please do so now. I will ask the rate commission staff, I do have here, would you please announce those who have requested to speak? I have one speaker signed up, William Bonner. Those wishing to speak, please remember to state your name and address for the record, and if you represent an organization. William Bonner.
You got one question before I speak on what I was going to speak on. Say in 2028, that rate will be, if we vote not bond it out, will be at that 5% higher rate or so. Will that rate decrease and go back to our normal rate once that 4-year period is up?
Mr. Holscher, would you like him to answer that in a bit before you speak?
Yes, I would.
Certainly.
Sure. MSD's program started, well, we started before that, but the consent decree started in 2011. It will end in 2039. All we're setting up with folks is saying how to pay for the next 4 years. So when those 4 years of projects are done, there's another 4 years in 2039 and 2032. So there will be need for more funds. Exactly what will happen to the rates afterwards, a lot of it's going to depend on what folks vote. If you vote to bond help bond some of the projects over the next 4 years, then the expense will go out longer. If we convert, if the voters decide that we want to convert to a cash basis and really pay for it in cash, it will cost more earlier, but then as the program starts ending towards 2039, the rates will either level out or potentially go down. But remember, we're talking about the next 4 years of a 28-year program. We have a new set of projects that we'll have to build every year, every one of those 4 years through 2039.
Thank you.
I'll turn it this way. Okay. Now, I understand all that, and I totally disagree with it because I've went through this since 2000. I purchased my home back when we were paying $12 or so every 3 months. Okay? My water bill then was $20-something every 3 months. Now my water bill is $27 and I'm paying $51 for the sewer. I'm paying more to get rid of the water than I'm paying for the water. There's a problem with that. I called down to MSD to have it explained to me, and it was told to me that I voted on that. I've never voted on an increase that large. When I purchased my home in 2000, I paid a $3,000 connection fee. That was included in the closing costs. Every year since then, I'm paying on my real estate taxes. I'm paying monthly. When is enough going to be enough for MSD? Our pockets ain't that deep. I work every day. I don't know what the problem is, whether it's the federal government's fault or whether it's Missouri's fault or what it is. But my pay has not went up 90% like these bills. And I appreciate y'all letting me speak.
Thank you. Mr. Holscher, anyone from MSD staff want to add anything to that?
No, I think we understand the comment.
Are there any other attendees? Please, if you please remember to state your name and address for the record, and if you represent an organization, please.
Yes, I signed up out there. My name is Amber Cole, AMBERCOLE. I'm in 63107, the city. I'm not in favor for this, mainly because I live in a two-family flat that I purchased in 2000. And I'm the only one in that house. I'm paying the same amount of money in that house of one person that the same person that has the same size house that have 10 or 15 people. I don't understand it. I'm paying for water closets, rooms, showers. The base cost comes up to $122 a month. I can't even afford to retire at this rate. That's just MSD. Then I have the water company, and they doing their things with the refuge in the water. And I done paid so much on that, I don't even know when I'm getting 125. Living in the city. So when you say about, let me go back. Then you tell me, when I called down to the water company and MSD, I said, can I have a meter? It's gonna cost you. You gotta get a plumber. Okay, how much? $2,500, okay. So when I get a plumber, I gotta also pay for a rental meter, $30 a month, plus the flat fee of $25 a month for getting the meter. And I still have the water bill. I'm steady getting all these bills, but I'm not getting no return on my investment. This is an investment to me. You know, I'm trying to figure out who has, who's getting the bonuses, because I'm not getting them. I'm not getting none of this, and I'm a senior. I cannot even afford to stop working because of this. Can't get Social Security, can't get all these other benefits. So I'm trying to understand, you want me to, do you want to pay all, you want us to pay it all at one time, cash, or do you want me to do a bond? Well, use your money for a change and stop using mine. I was in for all this, and nothing's getting fixed. People, things got to change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think there is something I want to add that she's brought up a point I didn't cover before. So, first of all, you're absolutely correct. The city water company, MSD uses the same billing that the city water does based on attributes. We're required by the Supreme Court of Missouri to do that. And you're absolutely right. It's the difference in billing for you and the other family you mentioned. That same difference exists on the water bill side. There are individuals in the city of St. Louis who have a water meter, and I know we understand there's expenses. That's not MSD's choice. That's the city water company. And there are some that we collect their bills, and we'll actually do potable water billing if they get the meters. Since you mentioned elderly, I think one part of the program we haven't mentioned, we have a customer assistance program. No, I know that, but I think it's to address it's not to take care of you, it's to address some of the issues you've mentioned. The customer assistance program, if you qualify, there's a level for senior citizens, there's a level for other folks, but it's to address some of these same issues. If you qualify, your bill gets cut in half. And so I would just offer that if you would like to know what that program is, Marion, I think you're the gentleman right over here, if that would be something to be possible. It's not something I mentioned in the presentation. Since you brought it up, I think I at least wanted to mention it so everybody knew that that was out there.
Okay. It's also true that the St. Louis City is also the county is buying water from St. Louis City.
I believe are they still doing that? St. Charles is buying water from the city of St. Louis. Yeah, we understand. So, and again, we're not part of the city, and we're also not the water company, but I believe the city of St. Louis is selling some water. We are completely independent. The city of St. Louis Water is the city of St. Louis. We are not part of St. Louis County. MSD is a separate entity put in place by a vote of the people, as described previously by Mr. Murin in 1954, to address just wastewater and just stormwater issues. We have 6 trustees. I am one of 2 employees of those trustees. We have absolutely no connection to the city or the county. We are a political subdivision of the state created by the state constitution. So there is no connection there. Obviously, we cooperate, and if our utilities are interfering with each other, we try and fix those problems. But we're not part of the city or the county.
Okay, did I just hear you say political?
We are a political subdivision of the state. That is the description of what we are. So that is the way the state constitution describes it.
Thank you. Is there anyone that wishes to speak that has not already done so? Okay. The next public hearing is scheduled for Monday, June 26, 2023 at 7 p.m. The hearing will be held in the City of Bridgeton's council chambers at Bridgeton City Hall. Bridgeton City Hall is located at 12355 Natural Bridge Road, Bridgeton, Missouri 63044. This public hearing is adjourned.